Today we're making a basic checkered shoulder bag, and this bag is made all in one piece, and there's only a little bit of sewing at the very end, just this little strip here where we attach the strap to the bag. And if you want some extra notes or tips, you can find the free written pattern at vivcrochets.com or linked in the description. And if you find this tutorial helpful, please leave a like or comment to let me know. Thanks so much, and let's get started. For this project, I'll be using 80 grams of Big Twist Value yarn in sky blue and white. And this is a medium weight yarn, so you can use any yarn you want, but keep it medium if you want to get a similar size. Otherwise, you have to change the pattern a little bit. And I'll also be using a 5mm hook, some scissors, and a yarn needle. So we're going to start with the base of the bag, and we're going to make a slip knot. So place the yarn over your hand with the tail end at the bottom. Grab it with your thumb. Then grab the top and wrap it around 2 fingers to form an X. And hold it with your pinky. Then with your hook, go under one side of the X, over, then grab the other side and pull it through. Then remove your fingers and tighten the knot. Now we're going to chain the width of the bag. So that's the horizontal length. And to chain, yarn over and pull through. Again, yarn over and pull through. And we're going to keep chaining until we get the width that we want. And it must be a multiple of 8. So you can do 32 or 40, 48. I will be doing 40. So here I have 40 chains, and this will be the approximate width of the bag. And then we're going to chain one more as our turning chain. Then we'll skip that one. And in the second one, we're going to do a half double crochet. So to do a half double crochet, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on our hook. Then we'll move on to the next chain and do the same. Yarn over, insert our hook into the chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. We're going to do that 5 more times until we have 7. So now I have 7 half double crochets. So in our 8th half double crochet, we're going to switch to our white. So have the white yarn ready, and we're going to start a half double crochet in the blue, but finish it in the white. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull through. Then we'll drop our blue yarn, pick up the white, hook it onto our hook, and pull it through the 3 loops. And then make sure this tail is long enough to sew in later. And now we can start working with the white yarn, and we're going to do 8 half double crochets in white. And make sure that you're holding the blue yarn close to your chain so you're carrying it in your stitches. So we're going to yarn over, go into the next chain, make sure the blue yarn is on top of your hook, and do our half double crochet. Then we'll do the next one. Again, make sure it's over your hook so you're carrying it in your stitches. And we're going to do 7 again. So I've done 7 half double crochets, and in our 8th we're going to switch back to our blue. But first we're going to make sure that this blue yarn is pulled through our stitches so it's taut and not hanging loose. Like you can see the blue is sort of peeking out of the stitches. We're going to pull it so it's not bunching up. Pull it, but don't pull so tight that it creates a dent. It should still go straight across right here. So for example, if you pull it really tight, it'll dip down like that. Make sure it's loose enough where it's straight across. And again, in our 8th stitch, to change back to our blue, we're going to start the half double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull through, and we're going to drop our white, pick up the blue, yarn over, and pull through the 3 loops. Now we're going to do our 7 half double crochets in the blue. And again, make sure that you're carrying your white yarn in your stitches. So after your 7th half double crochet, we're going to make sure that the white yarn is pulled taut. And then we're going to do our 8th half double crochet, but finish it with our white yarn. And we're going to continue like this until the end. We're going to do 7 more in white. So we have our 7, then we'll pull the blue yarn so it's taut, and then we'll grab our white and complete our 8th half double crochet, but finish it in our blue. Now we should have 8 chains left, and we're going to half double crochet across, again making sure that we're carrying the white yarn. And in our 8th, we're actually not going to switch back to our white, because when we go back across, we're going to start in our blue. So finish your last half double crochet, but don't change to white. And then we'll tighten the white yarn, and we'll start the next row. So to start a new row, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And pull your white yarn over and around like that so we can carry it in our stitches. So we're going to do the same colors on top of the colors from last round. So blue on top of blue, white on top of white, and then blue on top of blue, and continue across. And we're going to be working under these V's on top, like this. And then the next stitch would be here. First, make sure your white yarn is pulled up like that so we can go underneath it when we go into the first stitch. And we'll yarn over, go under the white yarn and through that first stitch under that V, and we'll do our half double crochet again, in from the side under this V and under the white yarn, and complete the half double crochet. Like last row, we're going to do 7. So we're going to stop before the very last one. So there's one blue stitch left, and we're going to pause. Make sure our white yarn is pulled all the way through. And do our last stitch in blue, but switch to our white yarn with the last 3 loops. And now we're going to do our 8 stitches in white. So before our very last stitch, we'll tighten the blue yarn, then complete the last stitch and finish it with the blue to change back to the blue. And we're going to keep repeating that across, switching at every 8th stitch and doing the same color stitch as the row before it. So blue on top of blue, white on top of white, and once we get to the end, I'll show you how to start the next row again. And for the end of my row, I'm going to do my last double crochet in blue, and I'm not going to switch back to my white. Like we did in last row, we're going to turn and we're going to start with the blue again, so we don't need the white just yet. So I'll finish my last stitch in blue. The last stitch can be a little hard to see. Just make sure that you always have 8 stitches in your block. And we're going to pull the yarn through, making sure it's taut. And again, to start every new row, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And we're going to be working under the V's again. So on top of the stitches from last row, and we're also going to do the same colors on top. So our first stitch, remember to carry your yarn, and we'll do 7 stitches across. So we're stopping 1 before the end, and we're going to tighten our white yarn. And in our 8th, we're going to switch to our white. Then we'll do our 7 stitches in white. And then tighten. And then switch in our 8th stitch. And we'll repeat that all the way across. So for the end of the row, again, we're not changing colors. We're going to do our last stitch in blue, tighten the yarn we carried, chain 1, and turn to start the next row. And this will be the final row of this square. We're going to do the same thing. Do our half double crochets across, stopping at every 7th stitch to pull the yarn taut, and then switching colors in our 8th stitch. So exact same row as the last 2. So now we're coming up on the end of our 4th row, and our squares are complete, which means that the opposite color will be
on the next row. So we're not going to do the same color on top anymore, we're going to do the opposite color. So for our last stitch of row 4, we are going to switch to our white yarn. So there's the base of my bag. You can do more rows to make it wider, but I'm going to leave it just 1 square's width. Now we can start working the height of the bag. So instead of back and forth and doing rows, we're going to do rounds. So we're going to work all the way around this rectangle, but we are still going to chain 1 and turn at the start of every round. And that's so that the seam in the corner stays in the corner. So to start round 1, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And now we're going to do the opposite color on top of the last row. So we'll do our 7 half double crochets in white and while carrying our yarn. And then we're going to tighten our yarn. And in our 8th stitch, we'll switch to our blue yarn. And we're going to do our 7 half double crochets in blue on top of the white square. And then we'll tighten the yarn we're carrying and then finish our 8th half double crochet by switching colors. And we'll do that all the way across. So for our last stitch, we are going to switch colors. And we're switching colors, so this next square along the side is going to be blue, and that's so that this side can be white. So even though this is blue, it's going to be blue here too. So we're going to turn like this, and we're going to start working along the side. And every square is 4 rows of 8 half double crochets. So we're going to fit 8 half double crochets along the side of these rows. Since we have 4 rows, we're going to put 2 half double crochets into each row. The first row is here. We'll just go into the side of the row and carry our white yarn and do our half double crochet. So that's 1, and then we'll do 1 more into that same space. So that's 2 into the side of this row. And then the next row is here, and we're going to do 2 half double crochets into the side of this row. And if you go under just 1 loop, it might have a hole, so you might want to go under some loops in the back as well. So the hole kind of closes up. Then we'll move on to the next row and do 2 half double crochets. And in the 4th row, we'll do 2 half double crochets. In our 8th stitch, so our very last stitch, we've done 7 already. Remember to tighten the white yarn and then change colors in our last stitch. So we have our 8 half double crochets in blue. Now we can rotate it and start working along the bottom. So we're just working into the chains again that we did in the very first row, and we'll just go into the same spaces. So we'll do our 7 half double crochets into the same spaces. And you can carry the tail that we left here also if you want, so you don't have to sew it in later. So I've done 7, and I'll tighten the yarn we carried. And in the 8th stitch, I'll switch back to the blue yarn. And I'll do my 7, tighten, and then my 8th I'll change colors. And we're going to continue until we reach the end right here. Now we reach the end of going across the bottom, and in our last stitch, we're going to do half double crochet and change back to our blue, and we'll do 8 blue stitches along the side of the rows again. So we'll rotate, and we're going to do 2 per row. So just go into the side under a couple of loops and do a half double crochet. So this is my 7th half double crochet, and I have 1 left. So I'm going to tighten my white yarn. And then for my 8th stitch, I'm not going to switch to my white yarn. So same thing as the rows here. Every 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round, we're not changing colors in our last stitch of the round. But every 4th round, we are. So this is the 1st round of the square. So the last stitch is going to be blue and stay blue. And that's because we're going to chain 1, turn, work back across this blue part. And then at the end of every single round, we're going to slip stitch to the 1st half double crochet we made. So this one here, we're going to go under the stitch of the 1st one we made and yarn over, pull through the loop in our hook and tighten. And that connects the rounds together, and we can start round 2. And same with the rows. To start every new round, we're going to chain 1 and turn. So we're going to work back across this blue part. Remember to carry across your white yarn. We're going to work under these same V's again. So we're going to yarn over, put our white yarn like that so we can go underneath it, and do our half double crochet into the stitches. And we're working the exact same way we have been. We're going to do 7 half double crochets, and then we're going to tighten our yarn. And then the 8th, we're going to switch to the other color. And we'll do 7, tighten, and then switch in the 8th. And we're going to repeat all the way around. So we're at the end of the 2nd round, and again, every 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round, we're going to do our last half double crochet without changing colors. And if you're unsure which one is the last one, just count to make sure you have 8. You should have 8 in every block of stitches. And then again, to end the round, we're going to slip stitch to the 1st half double crochet we made. And then to start round 3, we'll chain 1, turn, and do our half double crochets across and do the same color on top of last round. And it's the same thing, 7 stitches, then tighten and change in your 8th. Now we're on the last stitch of the 3rd round. And again, since it's not the 4th, we're not going to change colors. So we'll do our last half double crochet and then we'll slip stitch. Chain 1, turn, and we'll work this next round the same exact way we've been doing. So for the last stitch of the 4th round, we are going to change colors. Because this is a full square now, and we're going to start the next set of squares in the opposite color. And then we'll slip stitch. And we're going to start the next round by chaining 1 and turning. And we're going to do the same exact thing we've been doing, except with the different color on top. So the blue goes on top of the white. But it's the same thing, we're just doing 7 stitches. And once we have 7, we'll tighten the white yarn or whatever color yarn we're carrying. And then switch colors in the 8th. And repeat. So since this is the first round of a new set of squares, we're not going to switch colors at the end of this round. We'll do our last one in white, then slip stitch, chain 1, turn, and now we're going to be working the same colors on top of last round. We're going to keep doing this pattern until we have the height of the bag we want. So again, every 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round of our squares, we're not changing colors at the end of the round. But every 4th round, the last round of the square, we are changing colors so that we can start the next set of squares. And we're going to keep going with this pattern until we have the height of the bag that we want. So here I've done 16 rounds and I'm happy with the size of it. And you can see that for my last row squares, I did 4 rows so that the square is finished. And my total length laying flat is 24 centimeters. Without the squares along the side, it's about 20 centimeters. And then this way, it's the total height is 15.5. Excluding the base, it's about 14 centimeters. The very last round, we're not going to switch colors. We're going to keep it blue because our side square, the one that's along the side, is white, so we're going to put a blue on top of that. So we don't change colors, and then we're going to slip stitch to finish the round. Now we can work on the strap. So the strap is going to be 1 square thick, and we're going to start it on top of this square on the side, and we're going to extend it and reach the other side and attach it to this square. So to do that, we're going to be working in rows like we did with the base, and we're still going to be carrying our yarn as we do our rows because we'll need it for the next square. So on top of this white square, we're going to do a blue square. So to start the first row of the strap, we're going to chain 1, and we're not going to turn. We're going to work directly onto this side square, and we're going to do 4 rows of blue half double crochets. So we're going to yarn over, and the first stitch is going to be that same stitch that we slip stitched to. And make sure you go under the white yarn so you can carry it over.
And again, we're doing 8 half double crochets. Then we're going to tighten the white yarn. And we're going to start the next row. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. And if you want this to be the inside of your bag, then make sure that you're always pulling your tail over to the inside. So the white yarn is on this side, not on the outside. And then we're going to carry the white yarn while doing 8 half double crochets again. And then we're going to pull the white yarn tight. Here you can see the white yarn sort of pokes through, and you want it to poke through on the inside of the strap where it's less visible. So that's our second row of the strap, and now we can do our third row by chaining 1 and turning. And now you see the white yarn is over on the outside of the strap. We want it to be on the inside. So move it over like that. And then we can carry it across while doing our 8 half double crochets. Pull the white yarn tight. And then start the next row by chaining 1 and turning. Now we're on our final row of the blue square. This time we're changing colors at the end, so we'll do 7 half double crochets. So here's 7, and we're going to pull the white yarn tight before we do our last one. And we're going to start a half double crochet in blue and finish it with the white. So there's how it's looking. We have one blue square on top of the white square that's on the side of the bag. And now we're going to repeat those 4 rows but in white. So we'll chain 1, turn, and we'll do the same thing. We'll make sure that the blue yarn is on the inside of the strap. And we'll do our half double crochets in white. And we'll tighten our yarn at the end of every row, and we're going to keep repeating the pattern. So again, that's going to be 4 rows in white. In the last stitch of the 4th row, we're going to switch back to the blue, and we'll do 4 rows in blue, switching back to the white in the last stitch, and we're going to repeat that until we have enough squares so it'll reach the other side of the bag with a curve for however long you want the strap to be. So we're going to do an odd number of squares so that we end up with the blue square and we can attach it to the white square on the other side. So I did 15 squares, and that's 60 rows. So my 15 squares is about 49 centimeters. Now we can fasten off, but we're going to leave a long enough loose end to sew the end of the strap to the bag. And to fasten off, we're going to chain one, about 1 foot long, should be enough. Then we can cut the yarn, and we can also cut the white yarn. You don't need a long one for that, we'll use the blue for sewing. Then we'll pull through with our hook and tighten this knot. And since I carried the yarn up these 4 rows, the white yarn up the 4 rows, I can cut it and it'll be woven in already. But if you want to be extra secure, you can tie it to this blue yarn. Do a double knot. Make sure you don't pull too tight that the white yarn bunches up your stitches. And we can just double knot and we can weave this in later. And now we can sew this end to this white square on the edge. So make sure that your strap isn't twisted, and find that square on the right side, and we're going to sew them together. So get your yarn needle and thread this long loose end we left into the needle. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect the 8 stitches here to the 8 stitches on the bag. But first we need to connect the corner to make sure there aren't any edges that are coming off. We're going to go up and under the V of this blue stitch that's directly to the right of our white square. And we'll pull the yarn through. And that connects the corner to the bag. And then we'll move on to the first stitch of the blue square on the strap, and we'll go down and through the V, then go under the first stitch of the white square on the right and up under the V, pull the yarn through. Then we'll move on to the next stitch on the blue, go down under the V, go under the next stitch of the white and go up, pull the yarn through, and we'll repeat all the way across the 8 stitches. And all of the stitches should match up, and the strap is fully connected to the other side of the bag. And we want to make sure we tie a knot so that the seam doesn't come loose. So we're going to go into the blue. We're going to go just under a loop, the one that's closest to where our yarn is coming out of, and we'll pull the yarn through, leaving this loop here, and we'll go into that loop and pull the yarn through. And that ties one knot. We can repeat one more time for a double knot. And it's fully connected and double knotted to make sure it doesn't come loose. The last thing to do is to weave in our loose ends. So I like to weave in my loose ends on the inside of the bag, so I'll flip it inside out, and this just makes it even less noticeable. So here I have my 4 loose ends, and I'll take the blue one that we just used for sewing and I'll thread it into my needle. And we're using different colors, so you want to hide your white yarn in your white stitches and your blue yarn in your blue stitches. So this loose end, I can hide it in either this square or this square. So I'll go to this square, and what we're going to do is we're going to move the yarn down to the base of our half double crochets. So this is the top and this is the bottom of these stitches. And then we can go under the stitches in the row. Under these loops. If you want to make sure that it's completely in the middle of your stitches, make sure you don't see your yarn needle on the other side. Then we'll pull the needle through. Then we're going to move down to the next row. So down to the base of another row. And then we can go the opposite direction under these stitches. We can check if we see the yarn needle, and if we don't see it, we're good, and we'll pull it through. And we can repeat again. The more times, the more secure. I'll usually do about 3 times, and that should be good enough. Once you're done hiding your yarn, snip off the excess. And we'll just do that for the other 3 strands of yarn that we have. So once you weaved in all of your loose ends, we can turn our bag back right side out. And the bag is complete. And if you're going to be using this bag really often, or if you're going to carry really heavy things in it, then I would suggest lining it with fabric and also lining the strap with fabric or reinforcing it with slip stitches. And here's the strap. Here's the inside. And that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.